what we're going to be doing is learning to solve an equation that has a power in it. We have solved equations. In Goal 2, we spent all Goal 2 solving equations that didn't have exponents. So now this is our first attempt in solving an equation that has an exponent. It's one of many ways you'll learn. Only, this is the only way in here? I'm trying to think. This might be the only way in Algebra 1. When you get to Algebra 2, you learn several other ways. To solve a quadratic equation, or any equation with a power. Quadratic equation just means an x squared equation, okay? You have to have it in a very specific form. So it can have something out in front. It can be a number or a letter or both. And then parentheses right next to each other, and it must be equal to 0. So it has to take on that look, okay? So the first 3 examples that I'm doing, it looks like that. It's in the correct form. Then we'll talk about what happens when it's not in the correct form. So this is in the correct form. Example 1 here. It sets of parentheses, which means we're multiplying because they're right next to each other, and it's equal to 0. So it's the correct form. It has to be factored and equal to 0. So this is one of the factors, and this is one of the factors. So 2 things multiplied together with my answer being 0. If you multiply 2 things together and the answer is 0, what has to be true about one of those things? One of the, not the x's, but one of the things has to be 0. Okay? So either this is 0 or this is 0. So not the x exactly, but that x term. Okay? So either, and I'm going to write it, either the x minus 3 is 0 or the x plus 8 is 0. One of the 2 factors has to be 0 if 0 is the answer. Then you solve, like we did back in chapter 2. Solve for x. Add 3. So x is 3. Subtract 8. And x is negative 8. So 3 and negative 8 are my 2 solutions. Now let me show you that it works. We won't check it every time, but I'm going to show you on this first example that it works. Let's use 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. And 3 plus 8 is 11. And 0, let's try that again. 3 minus 3 is 0. 3 plus 8 is 11. 0 times 11 is 0. Let's say it's negative 8. Negative 8 minus 3 is negative 11. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. And then negative 11 times 0 is 0. So the x value was not 0 for this. It was a different number, but it's giving me 0 when I plug those in. Now we're not going to check those every question, okay? I just want to show you that that's how it's working. All right, the next thing has 2 variable factors. So negative 3x times 2x plus 1 equals 0. So that means this times this is 0. So one of them is 0. So either the negative 3x is 0 or the 2x plus 1 is 0. And then I solved each of those like we did way back in chapter 2, so long ago. Divide by negative 3 to get this x by itself. And I get 0. So 0 can be an answer. And on the other one, I subtract the 1 and divide by 2. And I get negative 1/2. Next question has 3 things, 3 variable factors. X times 4x plus 3 times 5x minus 2 equals 0. So one of these 3 things is 0. So either x is 0, or 4x plus 3 is 0, or 5x minus 2 is 0. So one of the 3 variable factors has to be 0. Otherwise you can't get 0. That one's done. I don't have to do anything. X is by itself, so that's one of my answers. On the next one, I'll subtract 3. And then divide by 4. So negative 3/4. And on the third one, I'll add my 2. And divide by 5. So I get 3 solutions. 0, negative 3/4, and positive 2/5. Now, as I started out saying, those first 3 are in the correct form. They're factored and they're equal to 0. So, I am not going to do this for this class, for Algebra 1, but I'm going to show you a shortcut, and if you understand it, you can use it. I'm not going to use it, but I'm sure many of you can do it. Okay? So here it is. Like on these 3 examples, I wouldn't have any work. I would have gone directly to my answer. Okay? So there had been no work done. So it's kind of like doing the solving up here in your head. Okay? So, if there's an X out in the front, now it might be plain X, like this one. It might be negative 3x. It might be 1/2 x. It might be 7x. But if there's an X out in the front, negative, positive, with a number, without a number, that's 0. That gives you 0. It gave us 0 here. It gave us 0 here. Okay, so that's going to be 0. On the ones with the parentheses, because I factor the way I do with the X on the left side, all my parentheses, the X is on the left, and I factor it, turns out that way, then I can do this shortcut. So mentally, you're doing this. You look at the parentheses, and you change the sign. So since it's plus, and mentally I'm going to say minus, then I take this number to the right, which is 8, divided by this number in front of the X, which is a 1, understood in this case. So negative 8 over 1 is a negative 8. Mentally, I change the sign. So negative 1 over 2, negative 1/2. Negative 3 over 4. Got it. Positive 2 over 5. Got it. So, for these examples that I've done, I would have to have none of this. I could just have that. And that's it. So if you get that, please use it. Okay? Yes?
So you always have to change the signs?
Always change the sign. This is why. Because when you do the long way, what are you doing to get that 3 to the other side? You're changing the sign. Okay? So, I'm going to leave it up to you. I am not going to do it up here. But as we're working through these, if you cannot show this, then don't do it. Okay? Okay. So now my next ones are not going to be in the right form. So we're trying to solve for x. What is the value of x that when I square it, then take it times the negative 2 and subtract 8, I get 0. This is not in the correct form. So this is where all your factoring comes in. Now you factor it. It's equal to 0. 3 terms means trial and error. So this is why we learn to factor, to solve a quadratic equation. So x is x times x. Minus last term means one of each sign. 8 can be 8 and 1 or 4 and 2. I'm going to put correct answers in to save a little time. So 4 and 2. So now I have it factored. I have it equal to 0. If you know the shortcut, you can be done. Okay? I'm not going to do it. But if you know the shortcut, write your two answers and you're done. If not, this is what I'm doing. This times this is 0. So either x plus 2 is 0 or x minus 4 is 0. And I solve them. To get that x alone, I'm going to subtract 2. So I have negative 2, 0 minus 2. And on the other one, to get x alone, I'm going to add 4. So I have x is 4. So negative 2 and 4. And again, if you know the shortcut, you can do that from the start. I would not see any of this stuff on your paper, which is absolutely fine. Okay, some questions so far? Yes, sir.
So I use the shortcut, and when you're using the shortcut, so it would be when you're going right to left, it would be the 4 inside the division sign, so like.
So it's going to be positive 4 over 1. And then negative 2 over 1. So you're doing each parentheses itself. Yeah, each parentheses is its own answer. Okay, next question. 4x squared minus 49 equals 0. It's equal to 0. So that means we're ready to factor. 2 terms. I have a difference of squares. 4x squared, 2x times 2x. 49, 7 times 7. One gets plus, one gets a minus. Squares factor the same every time. Same first, same last, opposite signs. If you know the shortcut, write your two answers and you're done. These two things multiplied together give me 0. So either 2x plus 7 is 0, or 2x minus 7 is 0. And I solve them. Subtract your 7. So 2x equals negative 7. And then divide by 2. And I have negative 7 over 2. And on the other one, I'm going to solve for x, so I'm going to add 7. And these rules of solving are things we've done numerous times. Divide by 2, and x is a positive 7 over 2. So my two solutions, negative 7 over 2, positive 7 over 2.